Welcome to the show, sports fans. This is the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in. Another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, talking everything District 3 week in, week out. My name is Brandon Baney. This guy is Logan Green. Logan, you're coming to us from a darker location than we're used to seeing today. The sun hasn't come up yet where you live, right?
No, it's very gloomy out here today in the Treasure Valley. So, and yeah, my wife always says, I'm coming into your cave when she comes in to the room here, but it is it's a little darker and gloomier. It looks like it could be a rainy weekend across the state for the state football playoffs. Pretty much everywhere, it seems like. I mean, just looking ahead at the weather forecast, it doesn't looks like we could have some wet or snowy games everywhere, which is always fun.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Mullen on Saturday, way up in North Idaho, broadcasting there. And yes, snow, several inches of snow in the forecast. So
really? Like yes. During the game?
No, I don't know about during the game, but
it will be on the ground.
Snow slush on the ground.
Oh, so that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a couple years ago, there was a picture that it was Lakeside put it on their Facebook page of their game at Wallace. And I mean, it was almost to their knees and it was awesome. Like that would be a fun one to play in.
Definitely. And so, yes, Garden Valley will be going up to Mullen to play that game. We will talk about that more as we get to our football discussion. But let's start speaking of running. I don't know. Were we speaking of running? I'm trying to make the transition. Let's just talk cross country and get into it. The state cross country championships were held up in Lewiston last week, and like the record book was just like obliterated, Logan. New state record times on both the boys and the girls side. A girl from Post Falls set the new 5A or set the new state record for girls. But on the boys side, we've been talking about Rocky Mountain all season long. We saw them compete when we broadcasted the Idaho, the Tiger Grizz invite in Idaho Falls back in September. Landon Heemeyer won that day, and he told me in the post-race interview that, hey, you know, we're going to go win state. Like, we're not overconfident, but, you know, we're going to go win state, and then we want to qualify for nationals. Well, check. Rocky Mountain blows away the competition on the boys' side. Landon Heemeyer wins the individual title. Check out this time, Logan. 14 minutes, 38.79 seconds. That is the fastest time in the state of Idaho ever for a high school boys runner.
I mean, you just do some simple math there, right? Like divide that by 3-mile race, and you're talking sub 5-minute miles consecutively. That is, I could never do that. But obviously no one has ever done that at the high school level in Idaho except for him.
I mean, anytime you're running a sub 15, 5K, that's like otherworldly. And Rocky had not only Heemeyer accomplish that, but Tyler Sainsbury did it as well. He took second overall. He ran 14 minutes, 51.53 seconds. So they had two sub 15-minute runners. It's just insane.
Yeah, impressive by them. I mean, they are going to show up and, wherever else if they do make, I don't know, did they make nationals? I don't know if that has come out yet, but if they do go, like, you got to think they'll be in the mix there, right?
Yes. So the regional competition is in a couple of weeks in November. And then from there, they can qualify for nationals.
You got to think, though, that regional competition that they should be in good shape. When you've got two sub 15s and one that it's tough to match up with.
Yeah, that's just phenomenal for Rocky. They've now won 5 of the last 7 boys cross country titles in Class 5A. And speaking of running dynasties, on the girls' side, the Boise Brave win their 5th consecutive 5A title. Anastasia Peters from Post Falls was the individual champ. As we said, she set a new state record. But Allie Bruce takes second for the Brave. And then check out this wild story. Marlo Herford had a great recap of everything that happened at state cross country for us. It's on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. She is the preeminent cross-country distance running rider in the state of Idaho. We're so lucky to have her lend her talents to our site. But she had a great recap of everything that happened. And she had this story about Sammy Smith for Boise, who We've been talking about her the past couple of weeks because she has been competing with the U.S. Women's U17 national soccer team, and they've been playing over in India. So Sammy Smith wasn't able to compete at state for Boise as they won the 5A girls soccer championship, but she flew back, got back from India in time to compete at this state cross-country meet. Now, her coach, Aaron Olswanger, wasn't sure she was going to compete. I mean, I wouldn't, right? Who would after you've just been through some grueling international soccer matches?
Yeah.
She lands, and there were some problems with airlines, which is pretty common, in this day and age. And so you'll have to read the story for the full breakdown. But basically, she lands in Boise and goes, yeah, I think I want to compete. And so she hadn't competed in like 6 weeks, and she still takes 7th overall.
Yeah, I mean, to just show up and just compete, that's a feat in and of itself, right? To just show up, go to state, and then not only that, but to place in the top 10. I mean, you got to think that, I guess that shows how much of a grueling sport soccer is, right? Where I mean, I don't know what if she was training for state cross country while she was, competing with the U.S. soccer, but I would guess not. I guess she was focused on soccer, but the demands of that led over, and she was still able to just show up cold turkey and run a race at state cross country. And come in 8th place.
Yeah, just absolutely crazy. So that's what happened at 5A cross country. 4A, Bishop Kelly boys win the title. Another championship for the overflowing trophy case at Bishop Kelly High. They win the boys title. Their top performer was Austin Clough. He took 3rd overall. This was another race where the top 3 finishers all ran sub 15 times, Logan. And so Clough, even though he took 3rd, had a great time of 14 minutes, 58.19 seconds. Nicely done.
Yeah, another sub 15. And so, that goes to help Bishop Kelly, that just, like you said, the overflowing trophy case there at BK. They're not in short supply.
Definitely not. The highlight from the 2A competition was Cameron Moore of Ambrose repeating as the girls champion. Way to go. She wins back-to-back 2A individual titles. Ambrose didn't have enough runners to factor into the team race, but Cameron Moore did a fantastic job there. And then at the 1A level, Victory Charter has repeated as the 1A champs on the boys' side. Or Ian Stockett repeated as individual champion for Victory Charter, and the Vipers also won the boys' title. Ian Stockett, his winning time was 15 minutes, 19.49 seconds. So nicely done, Ian Stockett and Victory Charter.
And Brandon, you're just, if we go back to Cameron Moore here really quick, right? She won it for, runs for Ambrose. Ambrose didn't have enough in the mix to go to state as a team, but she goes, and what other sport, I mean, maybe tennis is like this, but where it doesn't matter, you can do it on your own. And that's a bad thing, right? I'm not trying to say don't be a team player at all. We always say, no, I in team. But like when it comes to cross country, you can still succeed even if your team necessarily doesn't, right? It is on you. If you want to win a state title in football, your team has to come together to win a state title. But if you want to win a state title in cross country, you can, whether or not the people around you, maybe at your school want to, so that's just an impressive thing, right? Where maybe the team spirit or whatever it is isn't, up to where Cameron might want to be, or, the competition, the people at her school. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, right? But she just went and did it on her own, right? Says, I want to win a state title, so I'm going to go do it. And, even if my team isn't there or whatever it is, you go and do it. And so that's just one impressive thing with cross country that I think is that you can just do it, right? If you want it, you can get it. You don't need to rely. And again, I'm not trying to say that sounds so bad. Like in basketball, I don't need to rely on anybody else. That's not what you want to hear in basketball. And really for cross country or any sport for that matter. But at the end of the day, you don't to win a state title. You can do it on your own. And so, the hours that go into that, the preparation, you can do it on your own and still win a state title, whether or not your team is there or not.
Right. And in fact, Nampa Christian and Cole Valley Christian were the teams, and Melba qualified their teams from that district that Ambrose runs in. So that's the other, and on the flip side of that, Logan, a lot of times the team that has the best individual isn't always the team that wins the championship. You've got to have that depth, and you've got to have strength in numbers. So that's what makes cross country so interesting, for sure.
Yeah, like you can have the individual champ by a mile, but maybe not even be there. Like Ambrose, weren't even there. There was 3 other teams. Or you can be like Rocky Mountain and everybody's fast, and really not have a problem with it.
Yeah, you don't get more points because you won by a longer distance. It's all based on placement, and it doesn't matter if you win by 1 second or 1 minute. You're still getting, X amount of points for wherever you finish. So
there's no max preps calculation in cross country.
It's pretty simple.
Don't need to win by 11 plus.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just line up and run. So pretty awesome. State volleyball was taking place last week over in East Idaho. There was a lot of exciting, obviously some champions that came back from the Treasure Valley. I think we have to start with our champions, Logan. And any volleyball conversation, of course, starts with Skyview. They dropped down to the 4A level. They dropped 1 set the entire tournament. It was to Columbia in the first semifinal. And then they met up with Columbia again in the championship and got the sweep. And it was the only set Skyview dropped to an Idaho team, period, this year. Michael Leclama from the Idaho Statesman had that stat, which was just mind-blowing to me. But Skyview rolls. Columbia, though, takes second, which was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, and if any team was going to win a set against Skyview, you had to think it was going to be somebody that knew them well. I mean, that's what it's going to take. They just blow through everybody. Skyview does. And so somebody like Columbia, that's not even a conference rival, but a city rival, right? They're both in Nampa, both on the south side of Nampa. And, those people, those girls play with each other outside of school and, no tendencies, and obviously not good enough to win, but good enough to win one, which, like you said, a pretty impressive feat when nobody else had done it all year. But congrats to Skyview. Again, I think of any sport all year long that we cover, I think that this is the one where you say, who's going to win a state title? If I had to put my money on any sport, any team, anywhere, that's where I'm going, is Skyview to win it in volleyball.
Yeah, pretty obvious choice there. Big shout out to Melba. They win the 2A state championship over Westside. This was a rematch of last year's championship where Westside got the better of Melba. So it's nice that the Mustangs won the title. Even sweeter that they took out the Westside Pirates, the team that had beaten them the year prior. Pretty awesome for Melba.
Yeah, and I mean Westside came in as they're a 4 seed this year, and they even lost their opening round to Malad and still found a way to maneuver their way back on the other side of the bracket. So they were playing on thin ice the whole way, and that's a dangerous team. I think when you've lost that opening game, you have your season is over if you lose, and so congrats to Melba for getting it done.
Yeah, nicely done for the Mustangs. And then at the 1A D2 level, I mean, this is another team we talked about all year, Logan, Horseshoe Bend. I would love to see Horseshoe Bend and Melba meet up in a match just to see how that goes.
And Horseshoe Bend goes, and they don't lose a set all tournament long. They just roll through it and, kind of business trip, no problem here. Let's go home.
Yes. And you know what the scary part is for Horseshoe Bend? They don't have a single senior on the roster, Logan.
Because if I remember, like last year, they had a ton of freshmen.
Yeah.
And so they're only sophomores and maybe a couple juniors, and they're going to be a problem for a couple of more years, right?
Yes, and you feel bad because Council is a great volleyball program, but because they're in the same district as Horseshoe Bend, they get overshadowed a lot. Council ends up taking third. Another great run for Coach Paula Tucker and the Lumberjacks.
Yeah, so congrats to them. I mean, they have been in the mix for a lot of sports the last, 12 months, right? The girls basketball team made a run to the state championship. Volleyball team has been in the mix, and so they've got some athletes right now over there at Council.
Definitely. Let's talk about 3A volleyball. Fruitland gets to the championship match against Kimberly. They had lost to Kimberly in the first semifinal Saturday, and then they lose to Kimberly again in the championship. But Fruitland, nicely done, a second-place trophy. And Weiser takes third. So the two teams from the Treasure Valley go 2 and 3.
And I don't have it in front of me. I should have it. But did you see the score line for that semifinal game with Kimberly? That it went 5 sets.
Yes.
And it was like everything was within 2 points, something like that. I mean, it was neck and neck. It couldn't have been any closer. It was like a couple of them went long, like 29 points. One of them went, and it was, maybe you have it in front of you, Brandon, but it seemed like it was a heck of a battle.
Yeah. So Fruitland in their last match on Friday against Weiser won 27-25. Or excuse me, they dropped the first set 27-25. And then they won 25-21, 25-15, 25-23. So that's like nail biters all the way between Fruitland and Weiser on Friday. Then on Saturday, you're right, this was insane. Kimberly wins the first 2 sets, 25-23 and 26-24. Fruitland wins the next 2 by scores of 25-22, 25-21, and then the last set is 15-7 in favor of Kimberly. Fruitland then, as they battled back through, had to play Weiser again. Weiser, you could tell, was just out of gas. They had to play Snake River on Saturday morning. They won that match in 4 sets, but they were all very competitive. And then by the time Fruitland got back to play Kimberly, they were kind of out of gas as well. That's why it is so critical to win an undefeated semifinal match on Saturday. You can save your energy.
Because you win that, right? You've won, you won your opening round. Then you won the second round, and you won the third. Then you get off, right? And then everybody else has to play a game just to play you there, and they'd have to beat you twice. And so if you can get to that spot, you got to be feeling good about yourself. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would love to see the numbers broken down. I guess that's something we could look up. But when you get to the finals undefeated, what's the percentage that ends up winning that? Like,
I mean, I will tell you this year, every team that won the undefeated semifinal won the championship match, and none of them were pushed to the decisive second winner-take-all match. So
I would think that it would be tough to come back and win 2 in a row after you already had to play an extra game. Yeah, it's tough.
It's very unheard of, and softball's kind of the same way. You see it a little more in softball than in volleyball, but it's definitely tough. So congratulations to both Fruitland and Weiser for taking second and third. And then at the 5A tournament, Madison wins the title, and I think everybody thought it was going to be Madison and Eagle. That was going to be the showdown. They played in the second round on Friday. Madison won that matchup, but it was Timberline that kind of got on this dark horse run and fought their way through. They beat Post Falls for third place, and then they fall to Madison. So congratulations to Timberline. The Wolves end up taking home second place from state.
Yeah, and Brandon, you look at it, right? They lost that opening round with Post Falls, and then they win 3-2 against Hawaii. They win 3-2 against Eagle. So they were playing some tough matches all the way. They won 3-1 against Lake City, and then another 3-2 victory against Post Falls on the other side. So they got their revenge there. So that was a heck of a run by Timberline. Again, we mentioned it. You lose that first one and you make that run through, and they were tight the whole way. It wasn't like they were blowing people away. And so that's even more impressive in my mind, I think.
Yeah, just the fact that they were able to get there, and what an accomplishment for Timberline, just outstanding. So, that is what happened at state volleyball. Let's move into football, Logan. There were really only a handful of games that were even close and competitive for Treasure Valley teams in the opening round. I think the most competitive game that we saw was that Minico Valley View battle that went to overtime. So let's just start with the 4A bracket, where you had Valley View travel to Minico. They upset the Spartans last year in the rematch. They had Minico on the ropes. I'm telling you, Minico is counting their blessings that they got out of this matchup unscathed. Valley View was missing their best player, Tyson Fox. Didn't matter. Koa Mao ran the ball really well. Isaac Moore played a great game at quarterback. It goes to overtime, though, tied at 14-all. Minico scores on their possession. Valley View has a fourth down pass that falls incomplete, and so the Falcons drop it in overtime, 20-14. But what a battle by Valley View.
Yeah, I got done with my game that I was broadcasting, and then I had about an hour, 15-minute drive home, and so I may or may not have just put some games up on my dashboard. I'm not going to confirm that. But that was the one I pulled up, and I was like, oh my goodness, here we go. Like, I didn't know, I hadn't seen anything about the score all night long until I turned it on late in the fourth quarter. and they went to overtime. And Valley View, that final pass looked like it was there. I thought he might have caught it, but he was going out of bounds. I couldn't really tell. But, I mean, they were close to catching that. And, man, what a win, right? Or not what a win, but what a game for Valley View to once again almost pull it off. And I don't know, like, does that say more about the district and that maybe it was stronger than people originally thought and they go over there and do that? Or is that just Valley View playing the spoiler like they always do?
I think Valley View is just really well coached. I don't think you can make the district argument, because let's transition into the next game where Emmett kind of laid an egg at home against Shelley, not taking it. I mean, Shelley is a great team. I think they're underrated compared to where their seed is, but I was surprised, not that Emmett lost, but that it was so decisive. You know, the Huskies lose 37-13.
And that's what I think that was. I wouldn't have been surprised at the result and the loss, but 37 points to Shelley. Like, Shelley's a good team, but they're not putting up 40 points a game on average, right? They're keeping that ball on the ground. And Emmett, that high-powered offense, Dakota Perry at quarterback, only puts up 13 points. That was very surprising. And so, a little disappointing in that result from Emmett. But, man, Shelley is just a dangerous team themselves, too. I know that's a story for another Prepcast. But, so Emmett just can't get it done. And you know, for that matter, Skyview goes up north to Sandpoint, and this is one that they were kind of in the first half, but then things kind of just unraveled as the second half went along.
Yes, Skyview ends up losing 63-35. Max Cutforth in the loss, 409 yards, 4 touchdowns. Just another night for Max Cutforth, a very unheralded quarterback for Skyview, because they didn't win a lot this year, but he's got big league talent for sure.
Yeah, to throw that many yards in the playoffs, I don't care what the score is, but you put up 400 yards in the playoffs, you take that to the bank, right? You know that's the highlight tape to put together.
Yeah, and I mean that at the end of the day for both Emmett and Skyview, the story was they couldn't stop the run. They just couldn't. They got gashed on the ground time and again. And we saw it when Bishop Kelly played each of those teams this year. BK, of course, runs the ball exceptionally well. You know, whoever can stop the run might be the team that can win the 4A championship, honestly. We'll have to wait and see.
And I was talking to somebody about this, and, you know, I don't know who's going to win this. I mean, I know Bishop Kelly is the favorite coming in, what they've done, but I would like to see them play. I mean, out of conference, I mean, they did beat Burley, who made state, but their 5A wins, they played a couple 5A teams that were not really good. So I'd like to see them against the Pocatello this weekend. Like, Pocatello has played a brutal schedule all year long. And how is that? I thought Lakeland personally I thought they were going to beat Pocatello. That was my pick on the game picks. I picked them. But then, I mean, you were there for that one. It seemed like Pocatello, took care of business. And so that makes me worry for if there's a game to be like this week, I wonder how is that going to match up? I still think probably Bishop Kelly wins at the end of the day, but I think it'll be closer than what maybe Treasure Valley fans expect.
Yes, it's been such a long time since Bishop Kelly was in a close competitive game. They may not have had one all year, to be honest, where they get punched in the mouth and how do they respond? And that's kind of been their problem the last couple of years, is they've kind of cakewalked through the regular season. And then when they get to the playoffs, this happened last year, and Bishop Kelly, real quick, 70-0 win over Canyon Ridge in the opening round. Peter Menard returned the opening kickoff 85 yards for a touchdown. He has, his usual production on the ground. And Noah Bournes also returned a punt, 55 yards for a touchdown. So BK got a kick return and a punt return for a touchdown. But this is their thing. They roll through the regular season, they cakewalk through, and then they get into a tight situation in the playoffs. And to me, the last 2 years that they've been in, they lost to Century in the semifinals 2 years ago, or in the quarterfinals, and they lost to Pocatello in the quarterfinals last year at Holt Arena, where they run the ball. That is their bread and butter, right? Well, they get punched in the mouth, they get down a score, and they panic. At least this is my perspective, and I was on the call for both of those games the last 2 years, so I can kind of know what I'm talking about. they just seem to panic and they get away from what was so successful for them all year. And then it snowballs and then they're headed home. So can BK execute in a tight contest is still the question to be answered.
Yeah. And like you said, we haven't seen it. That's not saying they can't. We just have not seen it this year.
Yeah. And so that to me is the big question mark. Now they should be the favorite against Pocatello. Pocatello is a team that's very banged up. They're missing one of their best linebackers. Of course, their starting quarterback's been out all year. So they're just with duct tape and paper clips. Pocatello's finding a way to advance, but BK should be favored in that matchup. Let's move to 5A football. The most intriguing game there was Middleton going up to Lewiston and walking out with a 14-7 win to hold that Lewiston offense to 7 points. I thought was pretty impressive by the Vikings.
Yeah, their defense has come, I think, a long way since last season, especially. I've seen a lot of Middleton football over the last couple of years, and it was like Swiss cheese, right? I mean, they gave up a ton of yards, and it seems like it's come together. I mean, they did lose last week to CUNA, but that was it was close. It wasn't like they gave up a gazillion yards in that one. And really, they've done pretty well after that huge loss to Meridian, right? That was about a month and a half ago, early September, and Meridian just wiped them. And so, now that's what they're rewarded with is you go beat Lewiston on the road, you come home and you get Meridian in the next round, which will be a tough matchup for them, but they have played. So, you got to throw that in there, but man, congrats to them for going up and winning that game. It's not easy to go up there. And from what I had heard, there wasn't a ton of hotel rooms in Lewiston this weekend for the team and the family up there because of state cross country. Right. So they found out a little later that they were going up there. So it was kind of a travel mess for the Middleton folks trying to get up there.
Well, all's well that ends well there. Yeah. Cole Holman was the IdahoSports.com player of the game. He had 93 yards on the ground, also caught a touchdown from Decker Hagler, and then Decker Hagler scored the game-winning touchdown with 6:46 to play in the contest, scored on a 3-yard run. Lewiston had one last chance. They threw a Hail Mary as time expired, fell incomplete. Middleton walks out with the 14-7 win. The next intriguing matchup to me was Mountain View and Nampa, Logan, and I kind of called this last week. I kind of said, I'm leaning Mountain View in this game. They've been banged up all year. They're finally getting some pieces back, and I never imagined it would be a 44-0 shutout. I think the Mavericks were pretty motivated.
Yeah, this one shocked me. I'll be completely honest. Like, I just never expected Nampa to get blanked like that after the season they'd had. And they just beat Mountain View like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. And to go from, we saw some teams like Murtaugh beat Lighthouse Christian last week and then lose to them this week in the playoffs. And so we've seen some of those flip. But to flip like this, that surprised me, to flip 44-0. And so, hey, you know what? If you're Middleton, you look at that and say, hey, look what happened in that one. If they can flip it that bad, maybe we can have a chance against Meridian. I don't think that's true, but man, what an impressive win. And Mountain View, if you're gelling like that right now, that's a scary thing for Highland, right? They have to go to Pocatello and go to Highland, and now all of a sudden you're gelling. It reminds me of Meridian last year, right? Meridian kind of had some, a little bit of issues regular season, lost some of their bigger games. They go to the playoffs. They beat Madison in the first round. Then they go and they beat Mountain View. And then they have a home game with Rigby and lose by the skin of all skins of their teeth in triple overtime. And it is just gelling at the right time for Mountain View.
Yeah. So, real quick, let's preview the quarterfinal matchups as we're talking about each of these teams. I think we're both in agreement. Middleton would need to play their absolute best game of the year, and Meridian would have to
play their worst,
commit a couple of turnovers, something like that. We like Meridian there. Mountain View's got to travel to Holt Arena Friday night for a 5:30 kickoff against Highland. I do lean Highland in this one. They're a little healthier right now. Their defense, their front seven is so good defensively. It's just going to be a tough matchup for Mountain View, I feel like.
Highland is the only team besides Rocky Mountain to be close with Meridian all year long. And I guess I'm using that as a gauging stick. and then they beat Rigby. And who else does that? Nobody, like hardly anybody's done that the last couple of years. And so, yeah, I think I would lean Highland. It might be closer than maybe Highland had expected, looking back a couple of weeks from where Mountain View's at. But Mountain View, if they can get past that Highland defense, maybe there's something there. But I like the Rams too.
This will be a low-scoring game, something like a 21-17 type of game. I feel like neither side will be putting up 40 points. I feel pretty confident about that. Hawaii traveled to Rigby, first game ever in Storm playoff history. They walk into the buzzsaw and lose 49-14. Cade Martin threw 2 touchdowns for Hawaii as the Storm kind of conclude their season. A nice run for Hawaii, but tough to win at Rigby, certainly. And now we've got Rigby and Eagle. This, to me, is the closest matchup of any of these quarterfinals in the 5A, Logan.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun one. I think there's going to be points in this game to be had. And Eagle likes to run the ball. Rigby likes to just put up points however they can. I haven't seen the Trojans this year, but
they like to sling it around.
Yeah, they in the past they like to throw, and so that should be an interesting contrast. And I don't know, I kind of like Rigby in the matchup, but I mean Eagle looked good all year long, right? I mean, they got better as the season got along. I thought at least from Eagle, and really they have that blemish on their record from Meridian a couple times, but outside of that, the Mustangs have played well. So it's always tough to travel, and will the weather play a factor? If it's going to be wet, does that favor Eagle, who wants to keep it on the ground? And Rigby plays in terrible weather all the time. They're used to it. And so, does that factor in too? I don't know. I think it'll be a great game either way, though.
Yeah. I slept on Eagle last year. In this round of the playoffs, they went up to Coeur d'Alene and knocked off the Vikings, which was pretty remarkable. Now they are the team that's trying to defend their home field. I can't believe I'm going to do this for 2 years in a row. I'm going to lean Rigby. Yeah. Eagle's going to prove me wrong again, and I will come back next week and wear it. But Rigby is such a good, talented team that, But, Eagle also is very good, very talented. This to me is the toughest call of any of the 5A matchups, but I will say Rigby. I guess that's my East Idaho bias showing.
No, I mean, that's how I lean too. I lean Rigby on it.
Yeah. And then we had Rocky Mountain beat CUNA 51-10. 42 seconds into the contest, Parker Weatherly returns a fumble, 29 yards for a touchdown. Art Williams ran the ball 13 times, 110 yards and a touchdown. He was the IdahoSports.com player of the game. Rocky now heads to Post Falls. I kind of like Rocky in this matchup. Post Falls is a team that's got a very explosive running game with Jake Bustamante, who's a great running back. But Rocky has shown this year that they're pretty stout defensively. I think whoever wins in the battle of the trenches wins this game.
Yeah, I think Rocky wins this. I mean, I saw Post Falls play down at Middleton against a team from Utah. Yeah, and Bustamante was very impressive. Of anybody on that team, he looked like he was the one to lead the way for the Trojans. But yeah, I like Rocky. I mean, that their loss this year is a tight one to Meridian. They are on a roll lately. They have just been, just kind of hot knife through butter, right, through these teams. And I think they're going to go up there and get the job done.
Yep. So I also like Rocky there. Let's move to the 3A where you had, let's start with McCall Donnelly. They went on the road to Buell and lost only by a score of 12-6. I was pretty impressed with the way the Vandals, the third place team from their district, were able to push Buell, the conference champion from District 4. It was a 12-0 lead for Buell at halftime. McCall Donnelly had a tough time moving the ball against that Buell defense. They did finally score on a 45-yard touchdown pass from Maddox Arnold to TJ Leonard. Arnold is just a sophomore for McCall Donnelly. So nicely done by the Vandals. Of course, they would have loved the win, but the fact that they were that close, I thought said a lot about their program.
Yeah, I mean, Buell only has one loss on the year, right? And it was opening week to Weiser. And that's it. Buell's kind of run through everybody else they played. So that's an impressive job to do it on the road in the playoffs to be that close. I mean, they're a play away from winning that game, really.
Yeah, so nicely done by Coach Lee Leslie and the McCall Donnelly Vandals. And then the game you were at, Logan, had a lot of drama to it. Weezer was hosting Timberlake, and this was kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, this was not. I mean, I'll be honest, Timberlake fans, if you're listening, probably not, but I apologize. It just seems like Timberlake every year gets into state and earns their trip down to the SRV to get killed, and then they go home, right? To get beat by Homedale 50-0, something like that, whatever it is. But man, they were punching Weezer right back, and it was a really good game, and they were undersized. I mean, you look at it, the line for Timberlake much smaller than the line for Weezer, but they did not back down, and they forced turnovers. And that was a big thing. They first forced a couple of turnovers against Weezer and then took advantage. And man, there was a point in the game. So Weezer scored first, and then Timberlake comes right back down the field and scores. Weezer fumbles. Timberlake gets the ball. They go down and score again. Timberlake had the lead in this game. And then Weezer got up by 2 scores. But at one point it was 13-7. And Timberlake had the ball, right, up 13-7, and I think his name is Olvera for Timberlake.
Oh, Rajani Oliveri.
So that's how I said it, but when I asked that, they were like, "No, they told us it's pronounced Olvera."
Oh, okay.
So, but I was saying Oliveri, and so sorry, Rajane. But he went up. He had like 3 passes that he caught really long, and Weezer just. I think they knew it was coming, but they just couldn't stop it when they wanted to. And he went deep on it and went up and came down with the pass, and it bounced off his chest. I mean, he had it. It was 3rd and forever. They end up punting, and then the first play from scrimmage for Weezer, they go 80 yards for a touchdown. And that tied it up, and then Weezer kind of went on a run. Timberlake came back and even had a chance late with an onside kick, but Timberlake was there. And I think Weezer, they had some trouble with them. I mean, they scored what was it? I think 27 points, and nobody else had put up more than 21 on them all year long. Homedale scored 21 on them. And outside of that, I think they'd only given up something like 35 points all year to other teams that were not Homedale. And Timberlake comes and drops 27 on them. That right side of the line, Timberlake had found something. They would run to the right, and there was space. They were picking up chunks of yardage. So I think if you're a team that watched that game at all or is watching film or anything like that, I think Weezer's got a gap on that right side. Now, will that matter against Bonners Ferry? I don't know. Did Weezer just play a terrible game? I don't think they did. I just think Timberlake was ready to go, and they played tough. And if Bonners Ferry can match that, it's going to be, from what, at least going off what I saw, I didn't expect to see that at all. Honestly, I thought Weezer would win by 4 touchdowns. If Bonners Ferry can play a similar game, watch out. The Badgers could make some noise and could pose an upset threat. They haven't lost a game all year. And it will be an interesting matchup on Saturday afternoon. That's for sure.
Yeah, this will be a game that we'll have for you on IdahoSports.com. Saturday, 1 p.m. in Weezer. Bonners Ferry beat Timberlake in a close battle. Weezer just beat Timberlake in a close battle. Seems to think that maybe a close battle is in store, but Weezer's got the GOAT on the sidelines in Tom Harrison, and there is no way that he is going to allow his team to get pushed around like that from a team up north again. So I actually think Weezer will come out and send a message this week in the quarterfinals. Yeah,
and that I've been thinking about it this week, and I can see that. I can see them saying, enough of that. That was enough. You're gonna go out and you're gonna roll this by a couple scores. I could just see it going either way. I could see it being a close one after last week, or I could see it Weezer just saying no thanks. I don't think Bonners Ferry is going to run away with it. I'll say that option is off the table, but I think we'll see. We'll see. Should be fun.
Definitely. And then you had Fruitland go to Snake River. This is a game we both called, Logan. Just using the eye test, Fruitland is a better team than Snake River. No disrespect to District 5. It was a very weak district this year. Grizzlies win 27-14. Lane Roberts was the IdahoSports.com player of the game. He had a pair of rushing touchdowns on offense. He also had a 80-yard interception return for a touchdown. So Fruitland wins 27-14. Tough matchup this week, though. They've got to go back to East Idaho and play Sugar Salem, the #1 seed.
And here's the thing, Brandon. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I don't know if there is a team that's got it together as much in the state classification-wide as Sugar Salem, and I would say Kendrick right now. I think those two teams do they have a issue? I don't know if they have any problems on offense, on defense, on special teams. I don't think either one of those teams has any issues right now. They are just so smooth. And so for Fruitland, it's going to be a tough, tall task to take on Sugar Salem over there.
Yeah, they're going to have to stop the run and probably get a turnover or two on defense if the Grizzlies want to have a chance there. And then Homedale had a bye. They host South Fremont. South Fremont kind of took Kimberly behind the woodshed, and Homedale, I think, is the favorite, but I said this on our East Idaho Prepcast this week. People keep telling me that South Fremont's head coach, Chad Hill, is one of the best coaches at crafting a game plan in terms of, okay, we are the deck is stacked against us. We're very undervalued in this matchup. What's the game plan that we're going to come up with to have a chance? And people keep telling me there's nobody better at it than Chad Hill, the head coach at South Fremont. So I'll be very interested to see what kind of game plan he puts together to attack Homedale. But I still like Homedale.
Yeah, I agree. I like Homedale here, but South Fremont's played a tough schedule this year. They've gone up with Sugar Salem. They've gone up north and beat teams. They've had some tough things come their way. Homedale as well. I mean, heck, we saw them beat Laguna Beach to start everything off. A big team from California, and they beat them pretty handily. And so Homedale, I just feel like, again, they kind of just are in their own little pocket down there, and then they just kind of quietly go through their season and beat everybody, and it comes out here, and we're potentially looking, Brandon, if it goes how we both think, we could see a Weiser and Homedale semifinal matchup next week. If both teams can get it done this week, which I think they do. So how fun would that be for the semis?
Get your popcorn ready. That's for sure. All right. 2A football. Coal Valley Christian had to go to Westside. They lose 61-14. I'm telling you right now, Westside is PO'd. They are PO'd at everything. They're PO'd that they lost the conference title by 1 point. They're PO'd that they're on the same side of the bracket as Bear Lake. In their minds, they and Bear Lake are the two best teams, and they should be playing in the championship, not a semifinal. They're PO'd at the new playoff system where the district champs get the top 5 seeds. They're PO'd that 2 teams from Boise got in. They're PO'd at everybody, and that's bad. I'm telling you, that's bad news for everyone that's going to get in their way. Coal Valley Christian just happened to be the first sacrifice to the West Side powerhouse. So
yeah, and it's funny because really, of the last 4 years, they have 2 losses by 1 point, and that's it. In 4 seasons, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, all of our squads, Melba, right? They're a home team this week against Aberdeen, which could be a good one, but. Declo has played Westside pretty tough. I know that's a different Prepcast, but over the last couple of years, and even this year, Declo was close with them. So we'll see if they still have that PO anger against Declo. But Melba, a great opportunity here as they got they just missed on having that 2 seed, which I think stinks for Melba because if they win this week against Aberdeen, then they most likely have to go on the road back to Eastern Idaho. Which has just been the death of Melba seasons the last couple of years, having to go to Eastern Idaho. But this matchup with Aberdeen, I think, will be a great measuring stick. Aberdeen is a good team, and so it's going to be a tough matchup. This will tell us a lot about Melba.
Yes, Melba certainly has put up some impressive results this year. They love to run the football. So does Aberdeen. My question is what type of quality competition did Melba see? Like we know Aberdeen is battle tested. They played Westside, Bear Lake, North Fremont. Melba played, I'm not knocking the teams from District 3, but it just was a weaker district this year when you look at statewide. And so I don't know if Melba got a good look from anybody this year. And so
no, I mean, you look Cole Valley again, no disrespect there. They are the second bid in from the conference, and they get beat pretty bad. And so that makes me worry. Like, when I saw that result, just thinking ahead, like, does Melba, you worry about that for Melba. But again, they've got the athletes, right? They've got the players that have been successful all year long. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I don't know. I don't know, Brandon.
I'm
leaning
leaning
Aberdeen. I don't want to say it out loud, but that's just where I'm leaning right now.
That's where I'm at too. And Melba fans can let me have it.
I would love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but
yeah, I mean, Melba lost to North Fremont. Aberdeen shut out North Fremont. I mean, that's just using the transitive property, which you always like to use. 2 + 2
equals 4.
Yeah. So we'll see. But that's a big game for Melba Friday night as well. 1A D1, Idaho City goes to Cary. They lose 70-6. Brody Backus still did his usual thing, though. 148 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He's had a great season for Idaho City. They just kind of ran into the buzzsaw. We talked about Cary was the #1 team, according to Max Preps. So no shame in losing there.
If you look at the 1A D1 bracket, is the state championship not going to be next week if Cary and Oakley wins? I mean,
right.
That's kind of the vibe I get. I mean, I don't want to say, I guess I shouldn't throw Notice under the bus yet. That, Notice is the last team left here from District 3, right, in the 1A D1 tournament, and they will host Cary. And so if you want to play Cary, at least you get them on the road, right? But that is tough. They are a #1 team, and you have to play them in the quarterfinals. It's a tough, tall task for Notice.
You're going to have to basically match Cary score for score because they can put up 40 points pretty routinely. And so same question for Notice as Melba, right? And Notice tried to put together a more difficult schedule, right? They hosted Clearwater Valley. They played Kendrick in the 8-man classic, but this District 3 was just so down this year compared to every other district in the state. I just don't know.
And I hope that it translates well. I really hope that they don't come out, and I hope that it's close. I hope that Notice can come out and play well and show up. But Cary is just so good. They did not skip a beat moving up from 1A D1 or 1A D2 to 1A D1. And, they're dangerous. And if they win this game against Notice, they're going to play Oakley in the semifinals, and that, you look at it and you got to think that that's probably actually a state championship game that's going to be played in the semis.
Definitely. So, let's go to 1A D2. Horseshoe Bend had to go on the road to play Dietrich. They fall 54-20. They hung close for about the first quarter and a half, and then Dietrich's, explosive offense took over. But the Mustangs finished the season off with a 5-4 record, getting back to the playoffs. Nicely done for Horseshoe Bend.
Yeah, so a good season for them. I mean, we maybe thought that they would have finished a little bit higher in the conference, but Garden Valley kind of stepped up and assumed their position at that second spot under council. And, they got a big win as well on the road up at Lewis County.
Yeah, so let me ask you, Logan. I went back and watched the film of that Garden Valley Lewis County game, and Garden Valley won 47-8. And I'll be honest, the feed I was looking at was tough. It was zoomed out. It was blurry. The players kind of looked like ants. They kind of looked like blobs. It was hard to tell which guy was who, but it seemed to me that they had a lot of athletes that they kept putting at different positions. They had a couple different quarterbacks. They had a couple different guys catching balls. I mean, Tacoma Kelly had 3 touchdown runs, 2 touchdown passes, and a touchdown reception. Now, you got to see them in person.
Yeah.
Is that what they do?
They are an interesting – I mean, Tacoma Kelly can just do whatever he wants. Right back there. He is very good. And like I told you, there was one point he scored a touchdown, and he was looking at his goal line. He had turned his complete body around and ran backwards and then reversed course and still was able to get in. And they just have a couple of different great athletes. They can just plug in, and I really think they are going to cause some problems for Mullen. Like, I really do. I think that I know they got beat by Council, and Council beat them pretty good, but Garden Valley. Though the only other thing is I worry about them too is how was competition. But you could say the same thing for Mullen as well.
Right.
So I don't know. I just don't even know what to think of this game on Saturday. I mean, you'll be there, Brandon. You'll see the Wolverines. They do a bunch of different stuff on offense. At least in the game against Horseshoe Bend that I did for them, they block well. They play defense well. They force turnover. And that game against Horseshoe Bend, like 7 turnovers inside Horseshoe Bend or inside the Garden Valley territory, that they forced those turnovers. And they're going to come after the ball, and they're going to come after the quarterback. And I think their brothers, the Corn brothers, are all over the place as well for Garden Valley. And it's going to be tough for Mullen if Garden Valley comes out to play like they have the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, really, Garden Valley's defense, I think, is the anchor of what they do. And that doesn't get enough credit. Certainly, Jaden Hunt leads the way on defense, and they're so good there. So the interesting thing is in Mullen, I'll be there for that game on Saturday on IdahoSports.com with video coverage. I was talking to Mullen's athletic director and their football coach, Stetson Spooner, yesterday afternoon to just say, hey, I'm coming up to broadcast the game. And he said, bring a jacket. I said, yeah, it's going to be cold. He goes, 3 inches of snow Friday, potentially 3 inches of snow Saturday. Could be rain and snow mix. It could be slushy. It could make running the ball more difficult. And he kind of, in a moment, admitted to me that, hey, Garden Valley likes to run straight ahead. So they're probably going to be okay. We like to run more on the edges, which could be more difficult in inclement weather. So I don't know.
When you try to make a cut, and you know what? If you've got 2 teams that are used to that, though, it's these 2, right? Garden Valley has tons of snow up there all the time, so they're used to that. I don't think they've had much this year to begin with, but those kids play in it. They get it. Mullen gets it, and so it's not like putting a team from the desert against Mullen, right, or a team from Boise. Garden Valley has played in their fair share of inclement weather over the years. So I don't know. I think this has a chance to be one of the best games of the weekend.
I think so too. I'm very excited to see it and to see Garden Valley in person finally, because I've been sleeping on them all year and I've been disrespecting them all year. And I'm very sorry, Wolverines fans, for that. Okay, and then we've got Council. They had the first round bye. They now get a home playoff game against who are they playing? I don't have the bracket up in front of me, Logan. Council's.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at Council plays Castleford.
Thank you. I knew it was another C team, but I didn't want to say the wrong name. So this will be a tough matchup. Castleford, we know, is good. Council, I think everybody's picking Castleford, so Council can kind of say we're the underdogs here, even though we're the home team, right?
Yeah, and you know what? This will be a gauge too. I mean, you might. I don't know. I mean, Council has played a tough schedule. They played Notice this year. They've gone out of conference and played some good teams. But Castleford is a very good team who is also. I mean, they were neck and neck with Dietrich all year long, right? And they were right there with them in that game that those 2 played. I think it was a 1-score game. And so Castleford, at least on paper, looks like, maybe the favorite in this game, but we just don't know. I mean, we haven't seen these 2 play each other. We haven't seen them. I don't think they have any common opponents this year from when I was looking at it. And so it's a toss-up. And you know what? You got to give the home field advantage some credit there. Council making or Castleford making the drive over to Council. So I don't know. I don't even know which way to lean on this one, Brandon. I think I lean Castleford, but that's not to say that I just feel like this bracket is so wonky the way it kind of is set up. Like, I mentioned it during on this Prepcast and during the Horseshoe Bend game against Garden Valley, but the winner or the person that lost that Council Garden Valley game, I thought had a better road to the semifinals at least than the winner, because you kind of could see Castleford coming for this game, and that's a tough matchup for your first round. I mean, that's a team that is probably worthy of a bye in and of themselves, and you get them in the first round. For you, that's tough.
It's kind of like last year where Horseshoe Bend had to play Kendrick in the quarterfinals, and you and I were talking like that's really a semifinal match.
Yeah,
that's not a quarter. Same thing with this. Castleford Council probably should be a semifinal matchup, not a quarterfinal matchup, but the bracket is what it is. So you got to get out there and play. So it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, and you know what? At the same time, you have to beat good teams in the playoffs. You know, if you didn't see them here, you'd see them next week. And so, in that regard, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think, though, at the end of it, you know, it doesn't really matter because the week after you'd play Kendrick, and I don't know if anybody's going to beat them. I don't know. They're so good.
We'll find out. Okay, so all of our fans that are watching and listening, you want to know which games we're covering this weekend. As of right now, 24 quarterfinal games going on across the state. We are projected to cover 18 of 24, which is pretty incredible. Second week in a row, Logan.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So tons of games. A lot of these Treasure Valley games are going to be on IdahoSports.com. So like Brandon said, just be sure to come back, look at it, see where your team is, see what time it is, and see if we'll be there. And if we're not there, it is not personal. It's just there are not enough. There's so many games going on in obscure locations that are just like we just can't get everywhere that we want to be this weekend. But we are at 18 locations. That is very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we strive to give you the best. If we commit to covering a game, we're going to send one and probably two broadcasters that know the teams, know the players. We're going to send the best equipment we have to make sure that you've got a great broadcast and a great viewing experience. You know, no broadcast is perfect. There's technical hiccups in every game we do, but we strive to not just, oh yeah, here's a camera and here's the game. Like, we're going to give you commentary. We're going to give you play-by-play broadcasters.
Yeah.
So that's we strive for.
And even I think, Brandon, I think this is at least, so I do. I mean, you've heard us talk about it before, but I take care of all the advertising stuff at Idaho Sports, and a lot of the other people that I've talked that they, you know, sometimes there's some miscommunication on when a game is quote audio only, when there's no video. But I've talked to a lot of our sponsors over the last couple of weeks, and they absolutely love the audio broadcasts, and that we send two guys there, and they know everything about those teams. They're very descriptive. You know, it can be better than watching, a broadcast that maybe somebody's just doing on their phone or something, or whatever else it is, where it's just, just a video and there's nothing there. Just listen up. We've got people that they know the teams and are working on it during the week, and it is worth listening to. You know what? If you're an Eagle fan listening, and you're playing Rigby, listen, put it in your ear while you're at the game or something like that. You can listen to it while you're there and hear, the quote expert commentary on it. And you know what? If you see the list and you see your team and you want to be on the broadcast for your team, just reach out to us. We are running out of spaces. There are, a lot of folks that have come on so far. But if you want to be on with your team in the playoffs, just give me an email. It's just Logan at IdahoSports.com. We would love to have you on. I think we had like 8 different businesses on for Weezer last week and a couple more this week. That's just one example I'm throwing out there. So a lot of great businesses out there that are making sure that it happens for you. That we couldn't be at 18 locations if we didn't have all of these people helping out with these broadcasts. So please visit these. If you hear an ad, right? I mean, I'll just go ahead, like Les Schwab and Weezer, right? Or Weezer Classic Candy. They come on for everything for Weezer. Next time you need a snack, there you go. Weezer Classic Candy, right? Go to these places. Go to these places that are making sure that they sponsor this and make sure it happens. And if you want to be involved, again, Logan at IdahoSports.com, we would love to have you on.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite stories from the playoffs last year was at the semifinals when you had those 2 epic battles of Highland at Eagle, Rigby at Meridian. The Highland game gets over. They win in dramatic fashion. The Highland fans are like, boy, I wonder how that other game's going. And they look and they see it's still in progress. So I'm not joking. The Highland parents, coaches, were all huddled on the field at Eagle still listening to, I think, the second or third overtime of that Rigby Meridian game. And they were listening on IdahoSports.com. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and they were listening to me, so they were getting the best. No, just kidding. I was who was I working with there?
I think Mike Safford.
Safford, yeah. That still is probably the best game I've ever done in my life. That was absolutely incredible. But anyways, yes, please just join us. It's not a lot, it's not a huge investment. I guarantee it's very small. We've had a couple of new people this week actually reach out and want to join. So if you want to get involved, just give us an email, Logan at IdahoSports.com.
All right. And check the game streams tab on IdahoSports.com to see the full list of games that we will be covering this weekend. All right. Enjoy the competition, everybody. We'll be back to talk more state football and state swimming is happening this week as well. We'll be back with a state swimming recap on next week's edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast. But for now, thanks for tuning in. For Logan Green, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.